Okay, awesome. Here I come. And you'll take the air out of my ear, right, Leroy? Awesome. Awesome sauce. Okay, just tell me the word and I'll start talking. Okay? All right, folks, here's the latest on Idalia. That's how we're being told to pronounce it, Idalia. Tropical storm, winds are up to 45 miles per hour. Now, you may say, well, things haven't really changed. Actually, upon satellite analysis, things have changed a lot. As expected, this developing tropical cyclone had shear, and that just meant as well organized as it was hard for thunderstorms or clouds to become vertical because we have what was called shear out of the northwest. But just within the last couple of hours, a CDO has formed. We call that a central dense overcast. You see it? It's right here. This is an infrared satellite picture. The reds indicate the colder cloud tops. The colder cloud tops meaning it's going higher up into the atmosphere. And so the center is right about there. And notice how now the thunderstorms are increasing around it. Now, there's still going to be a little bit of shear for the next 6 to 12 hours out of the north. Then the shear is going to shift out of the southwest. But by that point, the soon-to-be hurricane, when I say soon, within 24 hours, and so since then it's going to start moving in the same direction that the upper-level winds are coming from, that's going to help decrease the shear in a big way. Now, that's bad news for us. Remember, shear is good. It keeps these systems from developing. But once the shear decreases, and there's going to be another reason it's going to decrease, we'll talk about that in a moment, and it goes over. We've been talking about it all summer long. This is where well, really all of the waters have had record heat, but we've seen sea surface temperatures occasionally over 90 degrees here, and that is high octane fuel. So a gradually developing hurricane might possibly rapidly intensify as it approaches. So the official forecast going for a Cat 2 before making landfall, but even if it just slowly continues to intensify, this is a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane at 2 a.m. Wednesday, might not make landfall till about 8. That 6 hours could even itself get it close to a Category 3. So I think even now conservatively, we're probably talking about a Category 2 making landfall. Remember, this is just a forecast. It's not a guarantee, but it's looking like this is almost conservative. It could be stronger. Here's Lake City. Here is Waycross. Then, of course, you see the Jacksonville metropolitan area. So all of us will be fully impacted, but some of us more significantly. For now, let's go with a 100-plus mile-per-hour hurricane making landfall. Now, it will weaken as it makes landfall, but nonetheless, if we get a Category 2, then what that means for those of you in Columbia County, in Lake City, you're still going to be dealing with a Cat 1 hurricane, and on the fringes of a Cat 1 hurricane conditions, even in Baker, Union, and Bradford. And that's if it comes ashore as a 2. If it comes across as a 3, could even be worse. For now, what's that mean? Well, engineers have looked at, in fact, they're part of the group, the Saffir-Simpson scale that came up with, well, what do these numbers mean? Well, the wind speeds of a Cat 1 produces roof damage and large branches snapped. So that's also why within this area, in addition to the 5 to 10 inches of rainfall, expect widespread power outages, and some could last for days, dependent. The area next hardest hit, again, gusts to 70, so we expect the hurricane will continue to weaken, but it won't drop as much if it comes ashore as a Cat 3, will be the Okefenokee. So think from the Suwannee River Valley through the Okefenokee. The rest of us impacted as well. Big question we have already, will the bridges be closed? We don't know for sure. It tends to be judged by the person there at the bridge. But if we, in fact, from DUVAL through CAMDEN and GLYNN County, get some occasional gusts to 65, talking about gust, but occasional gusts to 65, we might see some bridge closures on Wednesday, at least some of those higher bridges. As far as any evacuations due to coastal flooding, because this hurricane is going to come in from the Gulf, that's where the big storm surge would be. And they might have a storm surge there of 12 to 15 feet. Because the winds for us will primarily be out of a southerly direction for most of us, certainly in northeast Florida, that will not bring much ocean into the estuaries in the river. Now, the St. Johns itself, with strong southerly winds, will certainly cause some large waves that will cause splash over in places like Riverside Park there, or Memorial Park in Riverside, there in San Marco, to name a couple areas. But we could possibly see sea level, water levels get to about 3 feet above normal in coastal southeast Georgia. Think specifically St. Mary's area, and then also in Brunswick, in the downtown area of Brunswick, and then other estuary regions. That's probably not enough for evacuations, but it could be enough to get some water on the roadways, so keep that in mind. Incredible consensus agreement among the best of the computer models. I'm just showing you the best. Now, for those on the Gulf Coast, even a difference of 30 miles is going to make a big difference, like we saw with Ian. If you're just to the left, to the west of landfall, not much of a storm surge. But under the eye and to the right, that's where that 8 to 10, maybe 15-foot storm surge will occur. We're leaning a little more on the right side of the consensus for now. We'll, of course, continue to keep this updated. And we're just looking here. This is one of the computer models that shows how near the core will be to the whole west coast of Peninsula Florida. And that's why the hurricane watch extends all along the west coast. So if this forecast is off by 30 to 50 miles, there could even be significant storm surge and winds even into the Tampa Bay area. So believe me, they are watching it closely down there. So there's one other variation that's going to occur as far as the shear. We've been talking about this over the last couple of days. It was over Missouri and Arkansas. See these thunderstorms here? That continues to drop to the south. Those thunderstorms are a reflection of what we call a short wave, a ripple, shot of energy. And as that drops to the south, then that will cause not only the shear over the Gulf of Mexico to decrease, but then also the shear level winds will then come out of the southwest and head to the northeast. And that's the same direction that the hurricane will be moving. Generally speaking, the faster this occurs, the more the landfall will be to the west. And I'm just talking about minor adjustments. The slower that occurs, then the more the landfall will be to the east. And the reason we're leaning more toward the eastern side, that is more towards Cedar Key versus Apalachicola, is because we've been watching that shortwave drop just to maybe a little bit slower than what some of the forecast models indicate. And the farther to the west would be a stronger hurricane. Now, notice I'm not saying it's going to be weak here, but it could be the difference between, let's say, maybe a 2 here versus a 3 or more farther out to the west. And again, that's going to be Wednesday morning. Feel pretty good about that timing. So for all of us on Monday, first of all, for those of you that maybe are fortunate enough to reach the beach, it's nice and quiet, but the rip current risk will be increasing not because of Idalia, but because of Franklin, which is passing east of us by 600 miles tomorrow, but Franklin becoming a major hurricane, the first major hurricane of the year as a Cat 3 at least. Back closer to home, pretty quiet here for Monday, but watch for the watches and warnings. There'll be some tropical storm watches and warnings. There'll be some hurricane watches and warnings, and those official watches and warnings will be the threshold to help then folks make decisions, whether we're talking about schools or bridges or all type of business and public decisions to be made, not only in Duval, but throughout all of Northeast Florida and southeastern Georgia. Now, rain will be increasing later Tuesday, but daytime Tuesday, you'll still have time to prepare, but try to get everything done by sunset Tuesday, because for many of us, this is primarily going to be a wind event. Anything loose around your place or your property, tie it down or get it inside so it doesn't become a dangerous flying debris for you or for your neighbors. By Wednesday, think right now, the stormiest of the weather from pre-dawn to dusk. And again, we're going to have variations around the region, but I would plan on at least maybe some isolated wind gusts to over 65 miles per hour. Remember, we call a severe thunderstorm when we get winds up to near 60 or higher. So I do expect power outages in Duval County. How widespread will they be? Depends just how far to the east this hurricane comes. For now, I'm going to look for scattered power outages that will not last for more than a few hours, but again, that might have to be updated. Rainfall, it's going to be heavy, but that shouldn't be enough to cause any more problems than we typically have during a particularly wet thunderstorm event here on the First Coast. Especially over western Clay and western Putnam County, you might even see some isolated gusts to about 70. That's certainly enough to produce some power outages. You're a little farther east in St. John's and Flagler, so for now, we're going to say gusts to 60, but still, that could produce some isolated power outages. Notice your rainfall totals will not be as high. Then we get into GLYNN, Camden, and Nassau. Remember, the core of the hurricane, or by then maybe strong tropical storm, will be just to your west, but still you're going to have strong enough gusts for some power outages, and there's that tidal flooding that may reach about 3 feet above. And because you'll have more of a wind off the ocean, you could have some heavier rainfall totals as well. Then by Thursday, and we feel confident about this, that's when the clearing comes. We're going to continue with these updates at least every 3 hours until Wednesday night. And as the hurricane, we expect it to be a hurricane, gets even closer, the updates will come more frequently as well. So we have plenty of time to prepare. Keep a close watch on the forecast and certainly be prepared for a hurricane coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and heading our way.